70s, a city on the rise, full of dreams and ambitions, but beneath that bright exterior lurked a much darker reality. The streets seemed calm, but in the predominantly black neighborhood, fear had begun to take root. Children were vanishing. Their bodies were later discovered, dumped in rivers, abandoned in forests, left under bridges, and no one knew who was behind these horrifying crimes. Between 79 and 81, Atlanta became the backdrop for a nightmare that shook the entire community. More than 29 children and young men were abducted and brutally murdered. The victims, mostly African American boys between the ages of 7 and 17, were just like any other kids, going to school, playing outside, dreaming about the future. And then one day they were simply gone. It all started in the summer of 79 when Edward Hope Smith and Alfred Evans, two teenagers, were found dead. At first, authorities didn't sound the alarm. They treated the cases as isolated incidents, dismissing any real connection. But as the months went by and more children disappeared, it became clear something sinister was happening in Atlanta. Each family lived the same nightmare. A boy would leave home to visit a friend, run an errand, or just play outside, but he never came back. Desperate parents turned to the police, only to be met with the same response. Kids ran away all the time. Officers shrugged it off, assuming the boys had joined gangs or simply left voluntarily. But then their bodies started to appear, discarded by the roadside, deep in the woods, floating in rivers. Atlanta was spiraling into terror. The fear spread like wildfire, and the parents rushed to get their kids home before dark. Police increased their patrols, and the entire city was on the edge. People began asking the same question: who could be capable of such horrors? And then one name started surfacing more and more: Wayne Williams. A 23-year-old man, intelligent, ambitious, a little eccentric, not exactly someone who screamed dangerous. But when the police set their sights on him, the pieces started falling into place. Or at least that's what authorities wanted everyone to believe. So who was Wayne Williams? He was born on 27 of May 1958 in Atlanta, Georgia. He grew up in a respectable household. His parents were both teachers who valued education and discipline. He was a curious and bright child, often described as gifted. From a young age, he had a passion for radio, journalism, and technology. By high school, Wayne was already building his own radio transmitters. He dreamed of making it big in the media industry. He attended Douglas High School, sharpening his technical skills, but he never pursued college. Instead, he set sights on becoming a music producer, hoping to discover and promote new talents. He even started his own amateur radio station from his parents' house. People who knew Wayne described him as a driven but arrogant. He carried himself with a sense of superiority, often acting like he was the smartest guy in the room. He talked a big game about his grand ambitions, but rarely followed, through on them. Even so, could a man like that really be responsible for one of the most terrifying crime sprees in Atlanta's history? Wayne spent most of his time trying to make a name for himself in the music industry. He ran a small business aimed at discovering young talent, but success remained out of reach. He would set up auditions looking for new artists, but his business just simply never gained any traction. In addition to his music aspirations, Wayne was a dedicated radio enthusiast, but here's where things got weird. He allegedly used unauthorized frequencies to broadcast his own shows, sometimes interfering with official transmissions. This kind of got him on the authorities' radar. And then there was his behavior. People reported seeing him driving around Atlanta late at night, stopping to talk to young boys, offering them opportunities in music. To some, this seemed harmless, a young man just chasing his dreams. But to others, it was unsettling. Too many times he was spotted in areas where children had disappeared. The police started to keep an eye on him. And on May 22, 1981, everything changed. By this point, Atlanta was in a full-blown state of panic, which is normal and understandable. For nearly 2 years, children and young men have been vanishing, their bodies just later turning up in remote locations. The community was, of course, outraged and was demanding answers. The police and FBI were under immense pressure to find the suspect. That night, a task force of police officers and federal agents was stationed near the James Jackson Parkway Bridge. It had become a location of interest after multiple victims were found dumped in the Chattahoochee River. Investigators believed the killer was disposing of bodies there, and they were just hoping and waiting maybe to catch him in the act. At around 2 a.m., the stillness of the night was interrupted by a splash. Something had just been thrown into the water. Officers' eyes just darted toward the only car crossing the bridge at that moment, a Chevrolet that was moving slowly. Without any hesitation, the police pulled over the vehicle, and behind the wheel sat Wayne Williams. He was calm, a little too calm, and when asked what he was doing there, he just gave a casual response. I was on my way to meet a singer for an audition at 2 a.m. in the morning on a bridge. This didn't sit quite right with the officers, but unfortunately, without any solid evidence, they had no choice but to let him go. Little did they know, in just 2 days, this strange encounter would shift the entire investigation. On 24 of May 1981, the body of Nathaniel Carter, a 27-year-old man, was discovered floating in the river just a short distance from where Wayne had been stopped. Carter was one of over 20 young men who had vanished in Atlanta. His death, though, was a turning point in this case. An autopsy revealed that Carter had died from asphyxiation, but here's where things got even murkier because, unlike previous victims, Carter was older and the method of his killing didn't perfectly align with earlier crimes. Still, investigators were convinced, and then came the fiber evidence. Before Wayne Williams was even a suspect, the forensic teams had already found yellow-green nylon fibers and violet acetate fibers on multiple victims. These fibers were traced way back to a rare carpet manufacturer by West Point Pepperell, and exactly this carpet was later found inside Wayne Williams' home. Statistically, the chances of a random home in Atlanta having this exact type of carpet, one in 7,792. Prosecutors leaned heavily on this fiber evidence and presenting over 40 charts and 350 photographs to explain how fibers, how fiber transfer and why the samples found on the victims strongly suggested that they had been inside Wayne's home or car. But here is the thing, fiber analysis isn't foolproof. It's based on probabilities, so not an absolute certainty. The defense argued that fibers could have come from any number of places and that it was circumstantial evidence at best. Still, for the jury, this was enough. Wayne Williams was arrested in June 1981 and he was charged with 2 murders, those of Nathaniel Carter and Jimmy Ray Payne. Though he was widely believed to be responsible for many more, these were the only 2 cases for which there was sufficient evidence. His trial began on January 6, 1982 and was heavily publicized. The prosecution relied almost entirely on fiber evidence and witness testimony, despite no direct proof linking Williams to the actual killings. No fingerprints, no eyewitnesses, no solid, undeniable proof. And after just 11 hours of deliberation, the jury found Wayne Williams guilty. On February 27, 1982, he was sentenced to life in prison. To this day, Williams maintains his innocence. He is currently serving his life sentence at Hancock State Prison in Georgia, and over the years he has filed multiple appeals and requested new DNA testing, but so far all efforts have been denied. And yet, questions remained. In 2019, Atlanta's mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms, ordered a re-examination of the Atlanta child murders case, hoping that advances in forensic science might finally bring clarity. So far, no new answers, unfortunately. So, what do you think? Was Wayne Williams truly the monster who terrorized Atlanta, or he was just the perfect scapegoat, Maybe we will never know. I'm really curious about your opinions, so would it be nice if you would like to let a comment and tell me. Even more, there are a lot of the relatives and families from the victim's family, the actual victim's families, that don't believe that Wayne actually did it, that they actually believed that people needed answers and the police needed a guilty person, and he was unfortunately the wrong guy at the wrong time and moment, so to be very honest, I don't know exactly if, would be amazing if they would actually reopen this case so they can retest all the DNA, that they still have from those cases, because can be that an innocent man is losing the rest of his life in prison. He already lost. He was such a young boy as well when he entered into the prison, so can be that he will lose all his life, unfortunately, just for an error. Can be. I am gonna follow up this case. I'm gonna see when something else will show up, and I intend to make an update if anything new will surface about this case. I just want to thank you so much for your time, invite you to subscribe and click the bell, of course, to my channel. I am preparing another amazing case, in my opinion, and please feel free to leave a comment with your opinion and with any other suggestions that you might have for me in the comments section. I thank you. I was Cataleya, and I hope that you all will be safe until next time when we meet. Goodbye for now.